And this is the agenda for today. I will do a short intro of what ExFlow confidential documents is, and then we will do the walkthrough in Business Central and in ExFlow Web. So I will show you how to set it up, and then some examples how it looks like in the import journal and in ExFlow Web. And then we will end with a short summary. So, what is ExFlow confidential documents? Well, sometimes confidential documents need to be sent for approval in ExFlow Web to certain users only. Other users who aren't a part of the approval process shouldn't be able to access or search for these documents. And that's when you can use ExFlow confidential documents. So, the settings, they ensure that the documents requiring confidentiality can only be viewed by users that you choose, and the documents are not accessible or searchable for users who are not a part of the approval flow that you set. So by uploading a placeholder PDF instead of, well, you're uploading a placeholder PDF, I will show you, but that one is showed to the users that does not have permission to see this kind of documents. So only approval rules and users with the correct permissions can be used for the confidential documents, and they can see those documents. So the restricted access also applies to ExFlow Web, where your users approve the documents. So for example, coding cannot be changed except for one exception, and I will show you that. But then approvers cannot be added, and the documents cannot be forwarded without the correct role or access or rights if you don't allow that by a setting that I will show you. So let's jump into Business Central and do the walkthrough. Okay, so let's start the walkthrough step by step so you easily can follow along and understand how to set it up and use ExFlow confidential documents. So we'll begin with ExFlow Setup. This is where you start, where you enable the feature that, like the first step that you need to do before you start using ExFlow confidential documents. So let's go to ExFlow Setup. And here you find confidential documents, and you find this called Replace Original PDF with. So the first step is to upload a PDF here, and ExFlow will then replace invoice images for users who don't have permission to see these documents with this placeholder PDF. So this ensures that sensitive invoice data is never exposed to your users who shouldn't see it. So here you can upload a standard PDF. For example, you can create a document stating something like confidential document, you do not have permission to view this file or something like that. And this file replaces then the original document, as I said, for users without the correct permissions. So if this field here is left empty, then the real invoice will be visible to everyone. So make sure that you upload a PDF here before you start. And if you want to change this PDF, if you want to delete it or download the PDF, you simply click on these dots and you will get different options here. There's also a setting here called Allow Coding Changes on the Web. And when this is enabled, coding changes on the ExFlow Approval Web are allowed. And the approvers will then be permitted to change the current coding for their confidential documents. So if they, for example, split a line in ExFlow Web, the existing confidential approval flow will be copied to the new line. However, it will not be possible to add other confidential approval flows. You cannot add other approvers, and you can definitely not add non-confidential approvers to the flow. So if this setting is not enabled, users can only approve, reject, or put a document on hold. But if it's enabled, they can split a line, they can change the coding, but they cannot change the approval flow. So now that you uploaded the PDF, let's move on to the user setup. So this is where you decide who should be able to see confidential documents. And to work with confidential documents and view the document image in Business Central, the ExFlow user must have an associated user, a system user, and confidential access must be granted. So you go to ExFlow users, find your user cards. And let's open this one. So over here, you have a column called Access to Confidential Documents. And you simply tick this box for this user to have access to confidential documents. So when this is checked or ticked, the user can view confidential documents. If it's not, then they will only see the placeholder PDF, for example. And you can also specify whether this access applies to all companies or just one. I only have one company here right now, but if you have several companies on a user, then you can choose in which companies this should apply to. And when you have a confidential document, you can either add individual approvers to the workflow, and I will show you this in a moment in the import journal, or you can create an approval rule that includes several users who should approve the document. So let's have a look at an approval rule. And if you want to create a new one, you click on New up here, but I already created one, so let's have a look at that one. And here you fill out the information as you would for a regular approval rule, with the exception of this line called confidential approval. So you take this one or enable this one, and when you enable this, you'll only be able to add approvers here under approval rule lines that you have added the setting that I just showed you on the ExFlow user card. So you won't be able to add anyone here that you have not enabled that setting on the user card. And when you enable this, you might notice that it says disabled, and disabled is enabled. And the reason for this is that approvers or approval rules must be selected manually in the import journal and cannot be set dynamically in the system. So that's why this is happening. And let's go to the import journal to take a look at the documents there. So if a document should be handled as confidential, then you simply click here in this column. It's called confidential documents. And if you don't have this column, then you go up here and you click on personalize and you bring forth the column from there. And then it's the same in approval status if you don't have the column there. And once you have checked this column, you can either add an approval rule, and then you will get the approvers from the rule, or you can add approvers here under approval proposal. Excuse me. And then when you take this one, you will only be able to add approval rules and approvers that have those settings that you activate, either under ExFlow users, and then also the approval rule if you're going to use an approval rule. So to summarize this, here in the import journal, you check this box, confidential document, and then you add either an approval rule or individual approvals. And after that, you create the document for approval, and then it's sent, just as usual, to ExFlow Web. So let's take a look at ExFlow Web, where the approvers approve the documents. So here you can see that a confidential document is indeed a confidential document by the text in the invoice number column. So you see here that it says confidential document. And if you open the document, it says out on the top of the document up here. And users cannot change coding, add approvers, or forward a confidential document to another user per default. So a confidential document can only be approved, rejected, or set on hold, except for that exception of the rule that I showed you in ExFlow Setup. So as I mentioned earlier, when that rule called allow coding changes on the web, when that is enabled, the web approver is permitted to change the current coding for the confidential document, but they cannot add anything more. And if the lines are split in ExFlow Web, so let's say that the user, they create a new line or they split lines, then the existing confidential approval flow will be copied over to the updated coding or the updated lines. However, it will not then be possible to add other confidential approval flows or non-confidential approvers for the adjusted coding. So it's copied over to the next line as well. It is also not permitted to search for confidential documents where users are not a part of the document's approval flow. So for instance, if an approver tries to search for a confidential document without being involved in the workflow or in the approval flow, then the search result will be blank. And yeah, that covers ExFlow in Business Central and in ExFlow Approval Web. So let's go back to the PowerPoint and summarize some stuff. And I want to show you also an example of the placeholder PDF that you upload. So this is what you see on the screen if there is a placeholder PDF instead of the actual document when you don't have permissions, for example. So to summarize, confidential documents keep sensitive invoice data private, and only selected users with access can view the actual invoice image. And the setup then includes uploading the placeholder PDF, and then you grant users permission, and then you create an approval rule if that's applicable to you, or you can add users when your documents arrive under the part where you only add users, so not the approval rule. And usually now we would do questions, Q&A. So please write your questions in the chat and I will get back to you later or tomorrow on the questions. So please, please, please write them there so you get your questions answered. I want to let you know the resources we have available for you if you want some more information. And the main one is our online manual, and I will send you the link together with the recording. Where you can read more on how you set up ExFlow confidential documents, but there's also some other information there regarding, for example, if you have a vendor where you receive documents, only confidential documents, and how you can set it up then. And then we also have our video tutorials that you can find on our documentation platform as well, our online manual, and you can also find our release notes there. And then we have the info sessions, and I will show you our upcoming info sessions soon. But first, I want to let you guys know as well that we released a new product last week. It's our 6th in our product suite. It's called ExFlow E-invoicing, and it's fully embedded within Business Central, and it provides you a streamlined approach to managing electronic invoices. So ExFlow E-invoicing for Business Central helps you organize, stay aligned with the rules and requirements, and it provides you real-time tracking of financial transactions, for example. So I will send you a link if you want to know some more about that, or you can contact me later if you want some more information. And this is our upcoming info sessions. In November, we have ExFlow Data Capture, 10 tips in 10 minutes. So if you're using ExFlow Data Capture, I really recommend this one. We also have it in Swedish. And then in December, we have ExFlow Accounts Payable or AP, 10 common support questions. And we have that one in Swedish as well. So that's it for today. Thank you for attending the info session. Very efficient today. And please write your questions and I will get back to you. Have a great afternoon.